people? It's Hajimoto, and you see something here that you've seen before. It looks pretty familiar, but this is like a wolf in sheep's clothing, so to speak. Okay, this is the Umarex Gauntlet in 25 caliber. As you guys remember, Umarex came out with the 177 and the 22, and there were a lot of things that really were strong about that rifle. There was a lot of things that also could have been better. So when the 25 came out, all of us were anticipating feedback from the community to have been infused in this rifle. So what I'm going to do is talk about the basics. I'm going to show you the shot curve that I got out of this thing, out of the box, totally stock, and then we'll talk about some of the features. The rifle itself hasn't changed much since the 22 caliber. Essentially, it is the same exact rifle. The only thing they changed was the bore diameter. They changed it to a 6.5. That's it. Everything else, pretty much the same. They added a barrel band here to support in an effort to try to stabilize this diving board-like setup that they had previously. The only attachment point was here. This does add a substantial amount of rigidity to the barrel. Does it do what it should do in the sense that if this is knocked around, it changes the point of impact? We'll let the community decide that, because it takes a while to get a lot of feedback from a lot of folks before you can really count on what's going on. But let's get started with it. The rifle overall is 46 inches long. The barrel inside is 23.5. Then there's a spring, a baffle, and an end cap, all just like it was in the previous model. The gun weighs 8.5 pounds. The tank still is pressurized to 3,000 psi. It's 13 cubic inch there. What they did was raise the reg output to 1900 psi because it's a bigger projectile. So they didn't change the size of the plenum. They kept the plenum the same size. So the only way you're going to get more power out of a smaller plenum is to raise the pressure. Same single stage trigger, 11 millimeter dovetail rail on the top. It's got the Foster Quick Connect fill on the side, the manometer to show how much is left in it, and when you start to fall off the reg. Out of the box, I think they say you can get on the 25, 27 shots at 890. The 890, I'm not too sure what they used for pellets. One of the things that I do want to talk about a little bit is in their previous models, their owner's manual went over a lot of details on how they achieved the numbers they had, which I thought was beneficial. It's a double-edged sword for them though, because the pellet that they spoke to in the 22 was an unpopular pellet. It's really not something someone was going to use, and it was so light that it kind of inflated the numbers. On this rifle, they say 890, but the manual no longer does it identify what they used. So there's no way for me to prove that. So what I'm shooting through this is going to be JSB 25.39s, period. That's what I'll be shooting through this rifle. The one thing about this that I do want to point out, there are a few things that I expected to have changed when I took this out of the box, but it didn't. But let me finish the tail of the tape for the options that you get out of the box. They give you the rotary magazine, which is the same style as it was in previously, which is the Marauder style. 8 shots on the 25. They give you the single shot tray that you can sit in here for if you want to load each pellet individually. They give you the degassing key, so that if you want to depressurize the gun, they give you the key for that. There are the swivel studs on the front and rear if you want to put a sling on it. But as we've all seen, the position of this forward sling has the gun spin around on your shoulder. It needs to be more at the end so that it can be properly hung. It doesn't work too well. If you look at Steve Shalley's review, there's kind of a comical scene that he does. I'll play that, where the gun just spins around his shoulder, which I found comical. But it does do that. If you were to put a sling in those positions, it would do that. One of the options that I heard some folks say is, why not put the barrel version that they have for some of the powder burners? Again, if this barrel were more stiff and rigid, then that would have been an option. But there's a lot of things that they could have changed and didn't change, so we're not going to go there. We're just going to talk about what we have here. What I do want to talk about, that is the tail of the tape as to what this thing gives you out of the box. 27 shots at 890, I'd say kind of close. Out of the box, I think I was more around 870-ish, and 24 usable shots. So, you know, that's pretty close. That's pretty close. So we'll give them an okay or a pass on that. One of the things that really surprised me, I was really surprised, was when I took the shroud off, the OD and the ID of this shroud are identically the same as the 22 and the 177. The barrel that's underneath here has the same outside diameter as the 22 caliber, 11.13 millimeters. So if you had a 22 that had a barrel stabilization issue, to take more out of the center of it from 5.5 to 6.5 millimeter, essentially leaving you with a 2.35 millimeter sidewall, I just don't know how that would increase rigidity. I think they're putting too much faith in what this is going to do to stabilize this barrel, but we'll see. We'll see how that works out. Another thing that I was impressed with when I took it apart is, remember, they raised the regulator pressure to 1900 psi. And in the book here, they give warning that if you did buy a replacement bottle, never exceed 2100. That would be, you'd never want to put more than 2100. I did a shot string that shows my shot string results out of the box. I have to say, I was extremely impressed with that flat shot string across. It was great. It was very, very good. They did a great job of getting it balanced. So I really was impressed with that. When I took the gun apart, another thing that impressed me is they added a lot more fasteners into that valve, so that the pressure on this side, what we've got is 3000 here. On the other side of the reg, we now have the 1900 psi that they give, and that valve previously was only held in place by one little screw on the bottom that kept that valve in place. There were two screws that went into a block that was behind it, so if the valve ever moved, it would be pushing up against that plate. But still, it always made me nervous that there was only one screw in the bottom, and then one screw comes down through the top right here, through the top. So you only had a screw on top and bottom. Now, there's a screw on the left, the right, the bottom, and the top. I really like that. The thing I didn't like about that, and I'm going to show you here, is my screws weren't all the way in. They were, you know, because this thing's going through an assembly line, they kind of threw it together. So there was a lot of things in there. Again, same thing that they did previously, you know, just didn't do the fit and finish stuff. And it didn't, it could have been it left a lot to be desired, in my opinion. Another thing that I thought was really a letdown. All of us that have a gauntlet or been in the forums or have talked to each other about this, experienced or know someone that took the shroud off and found that their air stripper on the end, the factory stripper, was cracked. Most of us wrote to Umarex telling them that the ID of the stripper was too small, so the barrels were cracking the plastic. Well, what I have determined is that there's a plus or minus tolerance in the manufacturing of the barrel that's plus or minus 20 thousandths. That plus or minus, no, I shouldn't say 20, 2 thousandths. That plus or minus 2 thousandths on there can make the difference between it fitting snug or fitting so tight that it splits the plastic. So you would have thought that when this came out, they would have fixed that. Well, they didn't. This is mine. Mine is split right in the box as soon as I took it out. Here's a close-up. It was broken. I'm not the only one that's experienced this. There's probably about 10 to 20 other people that I've seen in the forums that have taken photos and also described theirs as being broken. Another important thing is, take a look at the O-ring that's on that stripper. There's no way that's touching the inside of that shroud, so it does nothing to use all of this space as a baffle chamber to help quiet the gun down. Nothing. The air's, it shouldn't even be on there. I don't even know why it's on there. So if it were used for the baffle portion of it, let's just say that wasn't its intent. The intent was for it to stabilize and support the barrel within this shroud. There's going to be a 1 millimeter play up and down, left and right inside there with the harmonics every time you pull the trigger. So there's a lot of thought that just wasn't put into correcting some of these issues, and I'm telling you what they are. Again, as I've always told you, I've paid for this myself. This is my rifle, and so I'm telling you my experiences with this rifle. Unfortunately, I ended up making modifications to this rifle before I got some 50-yard shots in. So I'm going to leave the 50-yard shots in stock to the other guys that are doing reviews. The 50 yards I'm going to show you is after I've ported this thing, polished the barrel, cleaned up the crown, cleaned up the breech, upped the pressure to 2100, made some changes to the spring by removing 1.5 to 2 coils off that spring, and polishing everything up. I also put in and designed a prototype of the adjuster in the back, the same one that's available on the 177 and 22 from Hajimoto Productions and JSAR. So that's in here now. I'm going to be, my 50-yard shots are going to be with this set at what I think is a good setting, somewhere around 850 to 900. All right, that's enough running my yap. What we're going to do is get this thing on the range, take some shots with it, and show you what the groups look like. I will only be shooting JSB 25.39s so that you get a feel for what it is. Thanks, guys. Let's go out on the range and see how she does. Currently, the DB meter is 3 feet in front and 3 feet to the right of the muzzle at the exact same elevation. I will be taking 3 shots. Average 2 pounds, 4.4 ounces. Hey guys, we're out at the range. I've got the Gauntlet 25 out here. Remember, this is not stock. I have made some adjustments so that we would get the appropriate 900 feet per second or 890 that they claim. I'm going to be shooting only the JSB 25.39s. We've got a target 50 yards down, and we're going to be putting an 8-shot group in. There we go, guys. About as close as you can get to the 990 that the 890 that they claim.
It's one hell of a group at 50 yards, 25 caliber.
Well guys, it's time for my final thoughts on the Umarex Gauntlet. While I could sit here and name off 40 things that this could be, I want to concentrate on what it is. Meaning what it is from the 177 to the 22, what Umarex learned from those two rifles, what they could have done, but they didn't do. Not wish list stuff. We're talking stuff that they could have just got right and made this thing a home run rifle. Let's just call it for what it is. It is a 25 caliber multi-shot repeater that's regulated, that you can buy for under $260 delivered to your door. We all know the places I'm talking about that sell this thing for a reduced price. Adjustable comb, adjustable single stage trigger, which isn't the greatest trigger, but it's adjustable to the point where it's doable. Works well. The magazine works perfectly. They did introduce the barrel band here, which got rid of some of the wiggle and wobble that used to exist here, like in the 22, where I show the gap between the two. All but eliminated with this. The upper forearm here, that was a floppy mess, if you remember. They've pretty much corrected that. It's not doing that anymore. They added additional fasteners in the valve to get that valve to be more properly supported all the way around so it doesn't shear off screws. Not that there's ever been a reported incident, there hasn't been, but it's nice to see them beef things up. They did bump the reg up from the 1150 that the 22 had up to 1900, so they did need to beef that up. That's part of it, but I would have been really worried if I opened this thing up and saw the same fasteners. They didn't. They upped their game. Parts on this that are just unforgivable. The air stripper issue isn't something that's new. Umarex knew about those undersized air strippers back on the 22s and 177s, and when I take it brand new out of the box and find it split like that and the issue still exists, that's kind of like, that's bad pool, man. That's not something that should be happening anymore. The other thing that they did is on the bottle. Most guys with gauntlets or have read in the forums, this bottle threads into the gun. It should be threaded in and tightened. The problem that you have is there's a manometer on one side and a fill probe on the other. Not fill probe, but a Foster nipple on the other. If you look in your owner's manual, they tell you the manometer is on the left. Well, in order for it to be on the left and the bottle to be tight, you can't. It won't line up. So you're loosening the bottle, so this thing's rattling around and it's loose and clunky. Not something that you'd really think should be that way. So what a lot of folks that have done is they've made changes so they could get it to align. But Ninja and Regulator manufacturers don't suggest you do that. So that's something that Umarex should have worked out. Again, this is not something that's specific to the Gauntlet 25. This issue exists on all the previous ones as well. Other than that, it performed admirably. These are my groups that were at 50 yards. You saw me shoot those. It got 24 usable shots after I adjusted this. Now, I gave forewarning right out of the gate. I upped the reg to 2100. I changed my spring setting in this. I added a power adjuster in the back. These are all my own custom doings. The same offerings, though, that are available for the 177 and 22. All of those mods that I just said are available. I needed to make sure that they would work in here. My air stripper's in here. My baffles are in here. My power adjuster and my modified spring, plus I modified the valve and opened the transfer port. Those are mods. So what you were seeing was modified numbers. Okay, your Gauntlet may not do 900 feet per second or 870. My shot string right here supports that it can't do it. Other than that, though, for what it is, an Umarex Gauntlet for the price point, it's a home run, guys. The only thing you could ask for on this now is if it came with a scope. And that would just be greedy at that point. That's going to do it for me. I look forward to your comments below. Thank you for watching. This is Hajimoto. We'll see you next time. So there we go, my Airgun brethren. Another video done. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it greatly and look forward to your comments below. Thanks for stopping by.